Welcome back. I want to continue with Elizabeth. Religion was one of the causes of mounting antagonism and friction between the English and the Spanish. Spain, of course, being the champion of Catholicism. England, of course, having turned to Protestantism with Henry VIII and the Anglican Church. There are other causes of friction, though, between the English and the Spanish. One was Elizabeth's support of the Dutch. And the Dutch rebellion is causing the Spanish headaches. Elizabeth uses the Dutch as sort of a stick with which to beat the Spanish with. A third cause, and perhaps the most important, was English intrusion into the Spanish Empire in the New World, in the Americas. In 1587, Sir Francis Drake raided Cadiz on the Atlantic coast. This was Spain's chief Atlantic port. Drake sank ships and destroyed supplies and water, and just made a mess of things for the Spanish. He forced the Spanish to delay any large-scale military operations they might have in mind. Finally, in 1588, this invincible Spanish armada set sail to actually invade England and to take England back to the Catholic faith. This, of course, was one of those decisive turning points in history. Most students have heard of the Spanish Armada, and even that date, 1588, tends to stand out in some students' mind. This was an immense fleet. My statistics say 130 ships, maybe 30,000 Spanish sailors aboard these ships. Now, the English fleet sailed out from Plymouth with an equally impressive force to stop the Spanish. The English had as many ships as the Spaniards, but their seamanship and their guns were much better. So was their leadership. As big as this was, this naval battle between the English and the Spanish, this is not the biggest naval showdown of the time. Twice as many ships and men fought in the Mediterranean at Lepanto in 1571. Here you have sort of a naval battle that's transformed into kind of a land battle as the Christian sailors boarded the Turkish or Muslim ships and destroyed the Turkish crews and destroyed the Ottoman ships as well. So we have two very large and historic naval contests here. 1571 in the Mediterranean between the Ottoman Turks and the Western Christians, and then 1588 between the English and the Spanish Armada. The Armada, this battle with England, was very much a naval fight. Unlike Lepanto, where the ships were close enough so that the Christians could actually board the Ottoman vessels and destroy them. Here in the Channel, between the Armada and the English fleet, it's a naval battle. It's at distance. Cannon duels, shattering ships back and forth. Now, a number of Spanish ships, thousands of men, were lost off the Irish coast. Eventually, about half of this fleet makes its way back to Spain. Truly a disaster for the Spanish. And of course, this ends King Philip of Spain, this ends his attempt to force England back into the Catholic fold. Now, it's instructive that the two Western European rulers who best survived these religious crises behaved much more adroitly and much more circumspectly than did Philip. Both Elizabeth I of England and Henry IV of France pursued policies of moderation, compromise, accommodation, in a spirit of trying to bring people together in common cause and to try to alleviate the religious strife that existed. Even as skillful as Henry IV and Elizabeth were, they were on the defensive most of the time. Again, I want to emphasize the defeat of the Spanish Armada is a decisive event in Western history, a blow against the Catholic powers, and further cementing the emerging, rising power of England under Elizabeth's rule. So the Protestants are gaining more traction as we move through these wars of religion. And of course, this closed the Spanish Armada. The defeat there closed Spain's sort of glorious century of power and glory. The Spanish had begun, of course, with Columbus in 1492. Columbus initiated these actions which established New Spain. The Spanish rapidly exploited the resources of the Western Hemisphere with its gold and its silver and other things. And for a century, Spain was the predominant power in Europe. This is not going to begin to change. The Spanish Empire is going to become under siege. Spain in Europe is going to begin to take a back seat to rising powers in northwestern Europe. The Dutch, the French will become increasingly powerful, and of course the English. And we can give some credit to Elizabeth for the success of the English here in the midst of these religious wars. And we'll turn to the Puritans, the Puritan Revolution, the English Civil War, the Glorious Revolution of 1688. We'll turn to these next. Thank you.